Hi, this is Michael. I want to share with you some thoughts I have on First Kings. Basically, I've been reading about the story of Jeroboam. Basically, how when Solomon he became king and he fell away from the Lord and he started doing things that were an abomination to the Lord. He started worshiping other idols and yeah, just basically the Lord then brought a prophet and said that his kingdom would be taken away from him. And the prophet went to Jeroboam and told him that he would be getting the kingdom, half of the kingdom, probably a lot more, because it was just a tribe basically that was left for Rehoboam. And so we see how Jehovah God, he goes and he sends his prophet and actually he says to Jeroboam through this prophet, if you follow my ways, I'll be with you and I'll build up your kingdom and establish your kingdom. And he gives him just a blessing if he follows and obeys his words. But quickly we find out that Jeroboam is not a man who seems to want to follow this God that he actually should know a lot about, and I believe does know a lot about. We see that quickly his fear of being the king now is that the people will go back to Rehoboam because the temple is in Jerusalem. And they will go back and quickly, their hearts would fall away and then they'd kill him. And so he was afraid of that rather than trusting God. And it says actually if you want to read that story, it's in 1 Kings 12, but in verses 26, it says, and Jeroboam said in his heart, now the kingdom shall turn back to the house of David if they go sacrifice to Jehovah at Jerusalem, even the heart of this people. And what I want you to notice is, and Jeroboam said in his heart. Our heart, it says in Jeremiah 17 verses 9, it says, the heart is deceitful above all things, and it is incurable. Who can know it? Who can know our heart? And then it says, I, Jehovah, search the heart. Our hearts are deceitfully wicked, and whenever we have a thought or we have we think about something, we should ask ourselves, is this a godly thought, or is this selfish or a thought from the devil? What is this thought? And it's basically you think about what you think about, because we can get caught up in thinking about all kinds of things that are actually not godly and not good. And out of Jeroboam's heart, we see just in a couple of verses later that his mouth speaks. Out of your heart, your mouth speaks. And basically he says in verses 28, and the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. And he said to them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold your gods, O Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. He had devised this in his heart. And rather than stopping the thought there, and I believe this thought came direct and straight from the enemy, he went on with this thought that it says was devised in his own heart. Actually, it's interesting, in verses 33, it says again, in the month that he devised out of his own heart. He didn't ask the Lord. He didn't seek his counsel, but he devised these things out of his own heart. And you know how sad it is when we leave the Lord out of our lives. Jeroboam is a prime example. he knew. When you read the story of Jeroboam, it's actually incredible, because when God sends a prophet to speak against what he is doing, he stretches out his hand to seize him, to tell his soldiers to seize him. But then God strikes his arm or his hand, so he can't pull it back. And so then he says to the man of God, pray to your God, so then he will hear you, so that I will be healed. And so he has faith that God can heal his arm, even though he does not want to follow him. A little later, he tells his wife, go to the prophet and ask him what is going to happen to our son, because he will tell you what will happen to him. So he had faith that God would listen to him, and yet he blatantly did not want to follow him. He rejected anything, that God could have given him. It was interesting also to note that at the time Jeroboam took over, the land was full of prosperity. It was very rich. And maybe Jeroboam didn't put two and two together, that God was actually the one that blessed the land, that the land had been this rich because of him. And maybe he was just thinking, God, I don't really have to follow God. Things are going well. I don't know why Jeroboam did not follow the Lord, but I do know that our hearts are deceitfully wicked. I know as well that when I look at my own children and how rebellious they are to authority, you tell them, come here, or don't do that, and they want to do the exact opposite all the time. It's a constant battle for their wills, and their will wants to do the opposite. And our hearts towards God, when they are untamed, when they are without the gospel of Jesus Christ, transformed and changed, are bent to evil. Again, this verse in Jeremiah, the heart is deceitful above all things, and it is incurable. Who can know it? Only a miracle of Jesus Christ transforming our hearts, bending our will to his, is going to do that. On our own, our hearts are just wicked. And so the encouragement to us is that, yes, there is hope to our hearts that are bent to evil, that are devising schemes all the time, that keep our hearts. It's not talking about a physical heart. It talks about our mind, will, and emotions. It's what we're made up of. And, if we don't give this over to the Lord, it's just going to be a constant battle. Well, it won't even be a battle. The battle starts when we give ourselves to the Lord. But when we don't, we're just going to be deceived and led astray. And Jeroboam was one of the kings that it says the Lord was very angry with this man, and actually basically said, I will blot his name from the face of the earth. And because of Jeroboam's sin, Israel would suffer greatly. It says that later on in the verse, that he was the one who kind of led Israel astray. There's so much more to be said, but the heart is a powerful thing, and we really must guard it and be careful. Anyways, love you guys. Talk to you later.